Good morning, Philippines. This is Group 6 Air Pollution Patrol. Our banner story for today: smog hanging over cities is the most familiar and obvious form of pollution. Generally, any substance that has damaging effects in the environment and into the atmosphere is considered air pollution. What really is this air pollution, and what can we do? Just tune in and know everything right here, right now.
Metro Manila, the busiest place in the Philippines, is one of the most air-polluted metropolitans in the world. A recent study conducted by the Department of Health in cooperation with the World Health Organization showed that the air people breathe in Metro Manila contains pollutants in excess of tolerable levels. Also, citing data from the DENR, the group stressed that the air quality in Metro Manila and other urban centers has reached internationally unacceptable levels that pose a clear and present danger to human health.
But before we go in deeper with the dilemma of Metro Manila, let us first know the basics for better understanding with the drastic situation we are in.
We live under a thin blanket of gases surrounding the Earth called the atmosphere. It is divided into several spherical layers. The two innermost layers of the atmosphere are the troposphere, which supports life, and the stratosphere, which contains the protective ozone layer. Much of the atmosphere's small amount of ozone is concentrated in a portion of the stratosphere called the ozone layer. Ozone layer is produced when some of the oxygen molecules in this layer interact with ultraviolet radiation emitted from the sun. This global sunscreen of ozone keeps about 95% of the sun's harmful UV radiation from reaching the Earth's surface. Air pollution is the presence of chemicals in the atmosphere in concentrations high enough to harm organisms, ecosystems, or human-made materials, or to alter climate. Air pollutants come from natural and human sources. Natural sources include wind-blown dust, pollutants from wildfires and volcanic eruption, and volatile organic chemicals released by some plants. Human sources pollutants are generated mostly by the burning of fossil fuels in power plants and industrial facilities, and these are stationary sources, and in motor vehicles, the mobile sources. Scientists classify outdoor air pollutants into two categories, namely primary and secondary pollutants. Primary pollutants are chemicals or substances emitted directly into the air from natural processes and human activities. Secondary pollutants are harmful chemicals that are formed when primary pollutants react with one another and with other natural components of air. Air pollution can occur anywhere. It occurs when the environment is contaminated by any chemical, physical or biological agent that modifies the natural characteristics of the atmosphere. Outdoor air pollution is evident nowadays. This pollution can decrease or increase because of some factors affecting it. For us to lessen air pollution, we must know what factors increase the outdoor air pollution and what factors decrease it. There are 6 factors that can increase outdoor air pollution. First, the urban buildings. In Metro Manila, it is undeniable that urban buildings are dominating the city. These buildings slow down the wind speed and reduce the dilution and removal of pollutants. Second, the hills and mountains. These landforms reduce the flow of air in valleys below them and allow pollutant level to build up on ground level. Third, the high temperatures promote the chemical reactions leading to the formation of photochemical smog. Fourth are the emissions of VOCs. VOC stands for volatile organic compound. These compounds are chemicals containing hydrogen, carbon, and possibly other elements that evaporate easily. Many hundreds of these compounds are present in the atmosphere. These compounds also contribute to the formation of smog in our atmosphere. Fifth is the grasshopper effect. This occurs when air pollutants are transported at high altitudes by evaporation and winds from tropical and temperature areas through the atmosphere to the Earth's polar areas. This grasshopper effect explains why for decades, pilots have seen dense layers of reddish-brown haze over the Arctic, and polar bears, sharks, and native people have high levels of toxic pollutants in their bodies. Lastly, we have temperature inversion. Temperature inversion is a condition in which the temperature of the atmosphere increases with altitude in contrast to the normal decrease with altitude. When temperature inversion occurs, cold air underlies warmer air at higher altitudes. This inversion contributes to the buildup of pollutants in the stagnant layer of the cool air near the ground. Now, what are the different factors that decrease it? There are 5 natural factors that help reduce air pollution: the particles heavier than the air, rain and snow, salty sea spray, winds, and lastly, chemical reactions. Acid deposition, or the most known acid rain, is the combination of chemical and atmospheric phenomenon that occurs when gases containing sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides form acidic compounds. These compounds are deposited on ground far away from the point of their origin as acid rain, acid snow, acid fog, or dry fine acidic dust. Acid deposition typically has a pH below 4, but this may be as low as 1.5 under seriously acidic conditions. It primarily consists of 2 types of compounds, namely sulfuric acid and nitric acid.
You might be wondering how this acid deposition forms.
Sulfuric acid is formed by conversion of sulfur dioxide emitted from power stations, melting processes, home fires, car exhausts, and other sources. It contributes about 70% to the overall acidity of deposition. Nitric acid is formed from nitrogen oxide emissions from fossil fuel combustion. It contributes about 30% to the overall acidity of deposition. Acid deposition is a transboundary environmental problem. This basically means that emissions in one country may affect forests and structures in the neighboring country.
Now you are aware on how harmful acid deposition is, we must take an action and be part of reducing this by prevention and by cleanup.
Being in an urban metro Manila, some people cook and heat their homes using solid fuels on open fires or traditional stoves. Such inefficient cooking and heating practices produce high levels of household indoor air pollution, which includes a range of health-damaging pollutants such as fine particles and carbon monoxide. According to the World Health Organization, 4.3 million people a year die from the exposure to household air pollution. Our respiratory system has a number of ways to protect us from air pollution. The hair in our nose filter out large particles, and the sticky mucus in the upper respiratory tract captures smaller particles. Sneezing and coughing expel contaminated air and mucus when pollutants irritate our respiratory system. In addition, all of us have cilia in our upper respiratory tract that continually moves back and forth to transport mucus and trap pollutants in our throat to expel it or to swallow it. However, these defenses can be broken down or overloaded by prolonged exposure to air pollutants. Our country has been implementing laws and regulations for years, one of which is the Republic Act 8749 or the Clean Air Act of 1999 that goes beyond making the polluters pay. It requires emission tests from the motor vehicles prior to the renewal of registration. Land Transportation Office or the LTO has established emission testing centers in various parts of the country, giving services to public transport vehicle as well as in privately owned vehicles.
Okay, so when you say prevention, when you say sources, mobile sources, how do you prevent mobile sources of pollution? Right now, before a car is registered or any vehicle is registered with the LTO, there is an emission test conducted by the private emission testing center. And this is a requirement prior to registration. So it is presumed that when the car is registered by LTO, that means it already complies with the standards of the Clean Air Act. That's prevention of air pollution. When you say control of air pollution, that's the time that we have to apprehend these vehicles that are emitting smoke, meaning vehicles that are traveling within the highly urbanized areas are apprehended for causing smoke.
Several cities have also promoted the more sufficient and smoke-free way of transport, such as the use of bicycle in Marikina and the electricity-powered jeepneys in Makati. Since 2006, motorcycle manufacturers have also phased out the two-stroke engines and replaced by less polluting engine, the four-stroke engines. The Department of Energy cooperates by way of reducing benzene in unleaded gasoline and sulfur in industrial diesel oil for a cleaner fuel. Pollutants from stationary sources such as sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter could be reduced in several ways. To start with, disperse the emissions with tall smokestacks. Using tall smokestacks would surely decrease the pollution downwind. Next is to remove pollutants from smokestack gases. And lastly is to tax each unit of pollution produced. In this situation, factories would definitely prefer to have a less polluted product. Another pollutant came from the motor vehicles. It is the primary factor in air pollution, most especially that there are already countless cars in Metro Manila. In spite of this, ways are also available to reduce it and prevent from getting worse, one of which is requiring every vehicle to have an emission control devices. Through this, the emissions of pollutants can be controlled. Next is to have an inspection in car exhaust systems for at least twice a year. And lastly, set strict emission standards. Implementing rules and regulations for reduction is a lot harder than simply preventing the production of the pollutants in the first place. Prevention works better and in the long run is cheaper than the reduction because no harm is being done yet. Motor vehicle pollution is getting worse as the years passed. That is why preventing is very much important. One should prefer using a bike or mass transit in traveling, or even walk for short distances. Improving fuel efficiency is a must. Unhealthy agents in the fuel should be removed. And lastly, get those old polluting cars off the road. Indoor pollution is much greater than the outdoor pollution, but people are not giving much attention to these, for they think it is normal. One of the suggested ways of air pollution experts is converting inefficient stoves to an efficient one. The use of rocket stove is highly recommended. Rocket stove is an efficient wood-burning cooking stove which is easy to construct with low-cost materials. It creates very hot fire and eliminating smoke. This is twice as efficiently and more cleanly than the open fire cooking methods still used in many areas of the world. As an individual, we can reduce our indoor pollution by simply using a fan to circulate indoor air, removing shoes before entering the house, for it may have some dust, lead, or pesticide in it. And lastly, grow house plants, as many as possible. As we have discussed earlier, prevention is the best of the best way solutions regarding the crucial problem of air pollution. According to the environmental and health scientists, over the next few decades, we will be asking, how can we avoid producing these pollutants in the first place? Rather than, what can we do about the air pollutants we produce? Shifting from controlling the outdoor and indoor pollution to preventing them is not that easy. But it would be possible if individuals or group of citizens would put some pressure on the elected officials in the government to enact and enforce rules and regulations, as well as putting pressure on the economic companies to stop the manufacturing of products that contribute to the air pollution problems. To put it briefly, it would just take an act upon us to make a big change. The principle is embodied in the Republic Act 8749 Clean Air Act, and it says, a clean and healthy environment is for the good of all and should therefore be a concern of all.
Okay, it's more on the advocacy aspect. The young people can help us. We have IEC, Environmental Information Campaign, but we need carriers of this information, and these are the youth, the young people, who can influence also their peers. Simple way of addressing or controlling air pollution is not to burn your garbage. Well, that's basic, because right now, if you look at the landfill site, it's continuously burning because of the emission of methane gas continuously coming from the field, and so it's already burning. Plus, if you look at at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you can always observe that people are burning their garbage. They're doing backyard burning at 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's a serious problem, because when everybody is burning their garbage, and you have air pollution throughout the city, in addition to the motor vehicles, which is the #1 source of air pollution. So that's it.
Individuals matter, and 40,000 Themasians can contribute and make a big change, starting from the UST environment, then to the Metro Manila, and who knows, to the whole world.
Turn off the lights and electrical appliances when not in use.
By simply turning off the lights would contribute a lot, since there would be a decrease in the burning of fossil fuels, which is in fact emits carbon dioxide.
Participate and take action.
Manage, reduce, and segregate waste. Be informed and be active. I can do it, can do it. I can do it. I can do it.
I can do it.
We know that the Tomasian is wise enough to make these big changes happen. Stop air pollution.
What are you waiting for?
Act now, let's do it.
Right here, right now.